So tonight we do have a great lineup ready for you, and we're going to kick off with our first panel, which is basically about war, peace and solidarity. And we have three great speakers, and I'm just going to give you a little brief introduction to them. We have Patrick Cockburn, who is an award-winning writer, columnist, author. He specialised in the Middle East. He has written for the Financial Times for many years, also The Independent, and he is the special correspondent for the iPaper and also the London Review of Books. He has reported on many conflicts, Beirut, Iraq, Syria, and his latest book is actually about his father's experiences, which is called Believe Nothing Until It's Officially Denied, Claude Cockburn and the Invention of Guerrilla Journalism. Now, you may have seen earlier on that Patrick did a book signing. If you missed that, Patrick will again be doing more book signings during the interval. So if you do want to get a copy of the book and get Patrick to sign it while he's here, you do have another chance during the interval. So I would like to welcome on stage Patrick Cockburn. Yeah. Wherever you want to have it. Yep. And also on this panel, we are joined by Kevin Callinan, who is the General Secretary of Forsa and a past President of the Irish Congress of Trade Unions, and he's also Chair of the ICTU Public Services Committee. Would you please give a warm welcome to Kevin? And last but not least, we have Aseel Marabeh, who is from Palestine and who holds a Master's in Humanitarian Action from UCD Dublin, where her work is focused on analysing Israel's media hegemony in respect of Palestine. So please, again, another warm welcome for Aseel. Yeah, you're all comfortable. Yeah. So again, thank you all for coming to be part of the panel of the third Robert Tressell Festival. But Patrick, can I begin with you and the book, your most recent book, about your father's experiences in Europe in the 20s and the 30s? And are there parallels to what's going on today?
Yeah, I mean, there are parallels which are, truly horrible. I think many people thought after the last war, Second World War, that maybe humanity might progress a little. And almost a century later, we discover it's not true. The 30s was called the Devil's Decade at the time. The 20s were really maybe a bit the same. And I was very struck writing this book about my father in the parallels between the two. And I've been a sort of war reporter for most of my life. I started off in Belfast in the 70s and Baghdad and Palestine and Syria and everywhere else, Afghanistan. But I've never known anything as bad as Gaza or anything approaching that in the sort of the cruelty of what's happening and the complicity of so many other states and people who haven't done anything about it. Mm-hmm. That again, I think, was a reminder of what happens in the 30s. The book that I was doing on my father turned into, I was interested in writing this for quite a long time, but it turned into sort of more a tract for our times and what might do. Very briefly, my father was partly English, but he was partly brought up in Germany. His father was a diplomat. He spoke perfect German. In 1927, he went to work for the London Times in one of their Berlin correspondents. He got to know it very well. He went to New York, where immediately there was the great crash. In 1932, things were getting much worse in Germany. He realized the Nazis were coming forward. He resigned from the Times, went to Berlin, fled Berlin a couple of days before Hitler took power, because he heard he was on a blacklist. Had no money and no job, but he returned to London and started up a newsletter called The Week, rather like sort of a bit like Private Eye, except it was all done by him. And this was an anti-fascist newsletter, which in the 30s became very influential, because so much of the rest of the press, I mean, American, but particularly the British press, were wall-to-wall sort of appeasement of fascism in Germany and Italy and Spain. So I won't go on with that, but he did, when he started this newsletter, it was pretty effective. He also fought in the Spanish Civil War. He felt that, I remember he wrote, that in the presence of such evil and such complacency on the part of so many people, if you could make a squeak, it would sound like a scream. And so I think it does have sort of lessons for the present day.
And in terms of the role that the media is playing in the events that's happening in Gaza today, are they doing enough, Patrick?
Well, no, they aren't doing enough. The truth is nobody is doing enough. But it's still, it's still astonishing how little they have been able to do. Now, journalists can't get into Gaza. Israelis prevent journalists getting into Gaza. You have, even so, you have people who are very, very good, like Fergal Keane, for instance, and others like that who've done magnificently. But overall, there's been a sort of complacency about that, which is pretty bad. And a sort of acceptance. There's been, I think, kind of a normalization of evil when these things go on and on, when tens, hundreds of people are killed every day. It suddenly begins to seem normal. Even if you try and not think about that, it still begins to think of it in that way. It still begins to feel normal. Just like in the 1930s, that the slaughter of civilian population, whether it was Jews in Germany, whether it was Republicans in Spain, whether it was people in Ukraine or Russia, suddenly became the norm of what happened to people. And the same thing happened in the 30s.
Yeah. And Patrick, effective activism, like what can people do? Because with previous conflicts, we saw it with the anti-apartheid movement here with the Dunn Stores strike. Like activism can be effective, but sometimes people feel that it's not actually achieving something, and they may give up hope to continue the little acts of activism. But tell us, how can we be effectively active against this?
Well, I think the answer is that you are being effectively active against it. I think that governments, people in authority, want always to say to those who are opposing them, who are resisting, who are marching, who are doing whatever they do, they want to say to them, we are paying no attention to your puny acts. It has no effect on us. So don't bother, go home and forget about it, because you're not players. But if you then look at the history of what happened, and this is one thing that actually activated me to start writing about my father, was I'd always wondered growing up, I knew what he'd done in the 30s, had it had any effect on anybody? And then quite some time ago, I applied to MI5, the domestic security in England, for their files on him. And the way you do that is you write to the director of MI5 and you hear absolutely nothing. You get no reply. And then I'd been told this would happen, about a year later, they either will or will not put these in the National Archives. They did. And I found there were 24 volumes on my father. And they were stuffed with outrage letters from ministers and permanent secretaries in the civil service and guys in security saying, why is this secret being revealed, that it has enormous impact. And I think governments are like that, or those in authority, they're always saying, we don't pay any attention to your marches or anything like that. So the answer is, how could it be more effective? I think the first thing to realize that what is being done is effective. It may not accomplish its aim, but it has an effect on those in power. And the more it's done, the more effect it has.
And can I bring Aseel in on this, because you are an activist, and in today's world, like, how are you reaching people, younger people, and you know, what methods are you using to highlight what is going on, and are there any issues or struggles that you're facing in using modern technology, for example, in getting the word out?
Actually, that was the focal point of my study, because as a child, I was always shocked to how come there has been this much silence while all these horrors is just unfolding in front of my eyes. And when I grew older, I understood why, because everyone's just caught up with their own struggles, and that it is truly by design. And you have mentioned the role of media. Not only media has not done enough, they have done quite enough of harm, of misleading the audience, of misinterpreting, using the wrong terminology, framing the victim, framing the oppressed as the aggressor. There has been so much harm in the language, the narrative, the context. How I approach young people, to be honest, I see opportunity in every person, old, young, a mother, a father. I see opportunity in every person. It is very draining to always have those conversations, whether it was in a coffee shop, in a bus, someone I just met, but I feel that's the minimum that I can do. You might call me an activist. I'm just someone who witnessed stuff and they just want to share it. And I'm very privileged, unlike many Palestinians who are suffering at the moment and they don't have the opportunity to be on a platform or to even speak up. This is one of the reasons why I chose Ireland, because when I wanted to study and embark on that journey and integrate with a different community, for me, there was one thing that was essential. It had to be a community that relates to oppression, because there was always going to be a deeper sense of my identity that is unknown, and I cannot relate on a deeper sense with them. So I've been very fortunate that I have a community here of Irish, of other nationalities. It was the good thing and the bitter thing, if you can call it. But for me, regarding activism, it's very important to keep going. Me, myself, I feel frustrated. I feel pessimistic a lot of time. I'm gonna be real, but I keep pushing myself. At some point, I felt I was just stuck in panels, just talking, but nothing really happening. But then I had to snap out of it, because in every time I was invited, in every person, there's an opportunity. You know your family, you have your friends. So just sharing the truth plays a major role. This is exactly why it's being silenced. This is exactly why there are millions of dollars spent on social media platforms to remove content, to cause demotion, to flip the narrative. Because our activism comes in two steps. It starts, the foundational steps is awareness. You have to be aware that there is something wrong happening somewhere for you to drive action. I have to feel rage towards something. I have to be convinced that there is something terribly wrong happening somewhere. And I, as a human who is who is fighting for rights and dignity for all, should stand up and do something. And Palestine is not a cause. We're not special people. We are people. And we do deserve freedom, justice, dignity. And Palestine is just, for me, it's reflecting, it's a mirror that reflects the morality of the human, the global community. So for me, you can see how deteriorated our societies have become, how isolated, how detached we are, how self-centered we are. Not just for Palestine, even within your own community. It says a lot. It was a wake-up call for everyone. And everything is truly interconnected. Palestine speaks for the rights of everyone. It's not Palestine, it's a symbol for something that transcends just a piece of land. It is not about a piece of land. It is about justice, about freedom, it's about identity. It's about standing up against what is clearly wrong. The panel is titled War and Peace, and for me, some people think of peace as the absence of bombs and battles, but that's not peace. Peace is a community that have self-autonomy, that have full control of their rights, of their resources, who can speak up. And Palestine have unveiled the many layers of oppression, not only in Palestine. For me, we might be oppressed and occupied, but we are the most vocal community among the world, because you can see people in Germany, you can see the protests. It opened people's eyes. Do we even have freedom of speech? Or is it just the speech that matches the government that we're allowed to speak? So many questions were raised. That's why what's happening in Palestine is quite unsettling and very threatening to whoever is in power. That's why when you fight for Palestinian rights, you're challenging those structural, oppressive regimes that are working together to just feast on communities like Palestine, Africa, Latin America, Congo, Haiti. It's not just Palestine per se. So I truly believe this is the beginning. I hope it happens on a quicker pace, because as we speak, people are being burned alive. And as you said, I do agree with you, there is the numbing shock. Israel is very clever, and they do follow this tactic, I have mentioned it before, which is they do the unspeakable, and then they keep doing it. But you become kind of desensitized. In the first time they bombed the hospital, everyone was shocked. And now I don't think there's any hospital standing. You see patients being assassinated, doctors are being killed and tortured. As a sentence, I've never thought that these words can be lined up in one sentence. Patients killed, babies in incubators found rotten. For me, there's lots of things that were unimaginable, but Israel continues to do so, and the world becomes more and more numb, more and more desensitized, while they continue with their plan, it was very clear, the end plan was seizing Gaza. The end plan is take over all Palestine, Syria, Lebanon. It does not stop there. And you can see Netanyahu bragging on a global international platforms showing greater Israel. Yeah. You have someone that is openly bragging about the seizing and occupation and colonization of other communities, and no one is speaking up. So I think it has been almost 2 years, and it's quite frustrating to see people are just battling over terminology. Is it genocide or not? Is it this or not? But there are people who are being burned alive. That's a fact. What do you want? That's a fact. And when you call something war, I hate war on Gaza or war in Gaza. It is very misleading as well, because traditionally war is, you think about two warring parties equal in powers. They did make the choice to go to war over maybe some land, some security issues. But this is not a battle we chose. This is a battle we were forced to fight, to stand up for ourselves, which is completely different.
Kevin, can I bring you in on the role that the trade union movement has in what's going on? Because you yourself have visited Palestine, you visited many places that have seen conflict. So what is the role of the trade unions? What can they do to try to make, to make people listen? As in those in the positions of power, maybe those who can actually do something that the people are demanding that they do.
Well, the first thing I'd say is that as trade unionists, we're internationalists. And the really good news is our members are good with that. In Forsa, 3% of our membership subscriptions go into a developing world fund. We disperse about €800,000 a year. Since I became General Secretary, I haven't got one email or letter of criticism about that. Second thing I'd say, the second thing I'd say is that global trade union federations, albeit generally, run on a relative shoestring, can make a big difference on bringing together people from all parts of the world around common issues. And the third thing I'd say is solidarity matters. And it matters more sometimes than we realize. So I led a small Congress delegation. There were 4 of us at the end to the West Bank at the end of June 2023. And we had 4 intensive days of meetings with diplomats, some people in the PA, lots of trade unionists. We visited lots of hospitals. The one thing that stood out to me was something that wasn't said at a meeting. It was said over dinner by a Palestinian woman who we spent a lot of time with. And kind of in frustration, she said, they just want us gone. They don't care, Egypt, Jordan, Europe, US, they just want us gone. And that's what I'm witnessing for the last year and a half. That's really, I think, what's going on here. We met with the now Taoiseach when he was Minister for Foreign Affairs at the, within a month of coming back, and I remember saying to him, the two-state solution is dead, it seems to me, dead. And but I don't think we can really underestimate the amount it mattered to all of the Palestinians that we met during the course of those 4 days, and all of the other visits, solidarity messages, the marches. They make a huge difference in any struggle. Turn it to, one of the things I'm involved with is a very small NGO, employs about 3.5 staff, owned by the British and Irish trade union movement, Justice for Colombia. And that organization has made a massive difference to the peace process in Colombia, continuing to, I'm very proud, Forsa supports the Peace Monitor for Justice Colombia and is really making a huge difference, maybe in a small way, but when you look at the scale of the resources that are involved, it's making a big impact. So I would say to a room like this, never underestimate the importance of solidarity. Don't underestimate the power of the trade unions and the trade union movement nationally and internationally to put, especially now, to put the defense of democracy on the agenda, something that I think is really, really where the battle is going to be. And, and we don't need to be afraid of it, because trade union members are very proud of the fact that we're an international, part of an international organization.
I could sit here and talk to you all night, and I'm sure the audience would love to listen to you all night, but it feels very bleak, the outlook, and people, I think, well, certainly from a personal perspective, that there is a lot of helplessness, because what is going to be the end? But Patrick, can I just let you end our panel discussion? Do we give up on hope?
No, don't not give up on hope, but also not give up at all. That those who do these things, commit these acts of evil, are hoping for the day when people do give up. And that's the day of their victory. But before people give up opposing them, that victory is not won from their point of view. And they know it, which is one of the reasons they kill so many people. So I think that, as I was saying earlier, opposition that people already, resistance that people already show, it has more impact than people imagine. But also, it's easy to fall into defeatism. But that, again, is dancing to the tune of those who carry out these horrific acts. So I think one has to keep sustaining oneself and energizing oneself to know that what is being done has an effect, but it doesn't end the horrors that are going on. Whether it was, for a long time in the 30s, year after year, fascism was advancing, just like authoritarianism, a sort of modern version of fascism, is advancing all over the world at the present. But eventually it fell. Eventually this was effectual. But these battles are very long, but they're not lost until people say they're lost. And however powerful the other side, however their sort of big guns, both political and military, they know that they haven't achieved a final victory till somebody runs up the white flag. And if that white flag is never raised, then they haven't won.
Well, everyone, could you please just again, it's been a privilege for me to have this discussion with you, to meet all of you. But everyone, could you please give a huge, huge round of applause to our panelists, Patrick Cockburn, Callinan, and Aseel Marabeh.